So Lexus just announced the brand new Lexus GX550. What does someone who actually off-roads a Lexus GX think of the new Lexus GX550? Well, today we're going to talk about it. But disclaimer, this is going to be an off-road perspective. In other words, the perspective of someone who's intending to off-road their GX like we did. We bought this GX460. It's a 2021, brand new off the lot, and started off-roading it and haven't stopped since. It's an excellent off-roader. It's a Land Cruiser product in the world market, as many of you already know. So let's talk about the new Lexus GX550. What do I like about it? What do I not like about it? Now, of course, I haven't driven the car, so this is all theoretical. Nobody's driven the car. So this is purely theoretical, so keep that in mind. However, I still think it'll be interesting and might help some people decide whether or not they want to get the new GX550 and switch from this GX460 or not. So let's jump right into it. So the first thing that I don't like about the new GX550 is the gas mileage. So they ended up going with the, I think it's the twin turbo V6. I forget how many liters it is, but it's the same engine in the Tundra. So it was speculation, were they going to put the Turbo 4 in the new GX, or are they going to put the Turbo 4 plus the hybrid in the new GX? At least the what's it called, the over trail model, that's what they're calling this GX550 trim that they just released, the off-road version of it, which is all semantics because the whole thing is an off-road SUV anyway. It's based on the Prado. But this particular trim gets the twin turbocharged V6 engine, and this puppy with its V8 gets 16 miles per gallon. The new GX550 improves that by a whopping 1 mile per gallon. Horrible. So, of course, you're going to get more power out of that. The new engine makes way more power. But my feelings on this are, do you buy this type of SUV for power? I drive this SUV on the road like an old person. You know, it's not a race car. And when you go off-road, you're not racing, you're going in super slow motion. So the power to me is whatever. Now again, this is just an off-roader's perspective. If you're not into off-roading and you're going to drive this thing to work and back and you want power, you're going to love the new 550 with its increased power. But from an off-roader's perspective, the power does nothing for me. It has plenty of power the way it was. So I was actually looking forward to a smaller engine that got better gas mileage. The new GX550 only gets 1 more mile per gallon, which is absolutely horrible. And one of the things that I don't like about the current GX is having to look at the gas gauge when you fill up and go off-road, or you're on your way to trail. You always have to watch it. You can't just set your mind away from the gas gauge like you can with some 4 and 6 cylinder cars. So will that matter to people? Who knows? This is just my perspective. When I go off-roading, I don't want to look at the gas gauge. So I think that it's kind of disappointing that the fuel economy wasn't increased up. Now, will Lexus offer different trims of this GX with the different engine? Who knows? Will they save those smaller engines, the Turbo 4s, for the 4Runner, which is going to be, of course, based on the GX? When it comes out, the new 4Runner? Probably. That's going to get the better gas mileage. So there it is. All right, let's move on. The second thing that I don't like about the new GX550 is this no third row. Well, at least on this over trail trim that they just released or debuted or whatever, there's no third row. And I don't know why Lexus did that. I hope they change that, but that's a disappointment for me personally, because what I liked about the GX was it's you can have it all type of SUV. In other words, before we got the GX, we were thinking, wouldn't it be cool if they just made a 3-row Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, you know? So you could stuff six or seven people in there, 3 rows, stuff all the kids. You can go off-road, and then it could double as a backup family vehicle. And I said, that's just a fantasy. And then more research led us to this thing. It's 3 rows. Of course, the rear seats are just for kids. That's young kids. That's what it's for. You stuff them back there when you need to, but you have it when you need to. And if you want more cargo room, these things in this GX460, the rear seats fold flat. And all our junk is back there, so we can fit 1 adult and 4 kids in this vehicle with all your junk in the folded down 3rd row. Well, the Overtrail GX550 that was just announced deletes the 3rd seat completely. And in this segment, for what you're paying, I wish they would have just made the seats fold flat down into the car, semi-flat, and so you have the option. Right now, it's frustrating to see that because it begs the question, well, what are the other trim levels like of this new GX550? If I want to get the GX550 with the 3rd row, meaning the 3rd row seats, if I want to get that, what am I going to have to sacrifice? Does that mean I don't get the Overtrail package anymore? Does that mean I have to give up the rear locker? Does that mean I have to give up EKDSS or the Mark Levinson stereo or this, that, or the other? I don't want to think about that in this bracket or class of car. Put the 3rd row back in the thing on all trims and just allow it to fold down. In the overseas market, you can, quote, have it all. You get all the off-road features, none of the body kit nonsense in the Land Cruiser Prado version. I'm sure the new Land Cruiser Prado, which is GX550, when you see it in the world market, will have 3rd row and all the off-road stuff. Why can't Lexus just do that here? That's up to them. So that's just, again, my feelings on that. So let's talk about some pluses. That's it. Those are only my 2 negatives. Now, again, we're not going to get into, do you like the way it looks? You know, this is an off-roader's perspective. You're either going to love the way it looks, hate the way it looks, be indifferent, who cares? That's up to you. This is going to be, again, from off-road perspective. So let's jump right to it. EKDSS. I'm glad that they put EKDSS on the new GX550. They didn't carry that over to the Lexus LX600 when they brought that over here, which of course is the Land Cruiser 300 clone, our version of it. They omitted it. So EKDSS, or even the regular KDSS, is the best thing since sliced bread. It's an automatic sway bar disconnect. I have no idea what all the KDSS stuff does. I'm just assuming it's way better too. So that's awesome that they brought that to the GX550. That's going to allow you more articulation. It's a full-on sway bar disconnect. So you got full articulation off-road, and then it'll firm up on-road to keep you nice and flat on-road. So that's awesome that they kept that. The second thing, the second pro or thing I like about the new GX550 is that it has the rear locker on it. Now, the rear locker is admittedly, or at least in my opinion, a marketing thing. They want to take out the question, is it an off-roader? Because without the rear locker and with only A-Track as its locker simulator, most Americans have been slow to adopt A-Track as being a locker replacement. Even though I've tested the thing to death and others have, and it works, in my opinion, better than a locker. I think Lexus and Toyota know that different markets struggle with accepting A-Track over traditional lockers, and they went ahead and shut everybody up by going, we're going to give you your rear locker. It still has the center locker, so it has a center and rear, and the front doesn't have a front locker. They could have bought that over, but I guess they drew a line there. So you get the rear locker and your center locker, and then you know the A-Track, it can't overlap the rear locker. So if you hit rear locker, it'll take off rear A-Track in the rear. If you put on the locker, it will, if you take off the rear locker, I got mixed up there. If you take off the rear locker, it's going to have A-Track in the rear. If you put on the rear locker, you won't have A-Track in the rear. The front will always have A-Track. And then, of course, you can lock the center. So they're overlapping redundant systems in truth, but it serves a marketing purpose for all those people out there who go, well, does it have a locker? Not understanding that A-Track, which has been around for over 26 years on the Land Cruiser, the big Land Cruiser, was Toyota's replacement for lockers. Here, When your new GX550, you have it. So in case you're in that camp that goes, well, the locker's better, you got it. You know, if you're in my camp like me, where you're like, it's the same thing, they're equal, you got it if you want it. So it's another positive. And that pretty much sums it up. There's not much more to say at this moment about the new GX550 and its off-road abilities. Now, I will add that at least on paper, the approach and departure angles are slightly improved because they got rid of the plastic body kit nonsense. Not all of it, but a lot more. Well, relatively more than what was on this thing. Now, compared to a Jeep or anything else, it's not. They didn't cut off enough. I wish they cut off more, but it looks a lot easier. The front profile of that bumper looks really easy to take a Sawzall to, or a multi to, whatever you're going to cut with, and cut off, you know, a good 2 inches of plastic, and you're good to go. So that looks good to go out of the box. The side steps look, you know, they give more clearance, so they're not rock rails. You still have to get rid of those. They're made out of aluminum, I'm sure, and you got to put on proper rock rails. But other than that, the bodies, as far as the body's concerned, there are improvements in that silly body kit that was on this GX460 that killed its approach and departure angles. So Lexus is listening there, so that's exciting. It will be interesting to see how this all ties in to the new 4Runner, which again, 4Runners are based on the Lexus GX, aka the Land Cruiser Prado, not the other way around. So it'll be interesting to see what they take away, meaning delete, from this new Lexus GX550 in order to turn it into a 4Runner. I think the obvious ones is they're going to put a smaller engine, better fuel efficiency, third row. Now, how that plays out with the trim levels, who knows? As it stands right now, my biggest sadness about the new GX5, and of course I'm being dramatic here, my biggest disappointment about the GX550 is not so much the gas mileage. You knew when you got this old GX that it got horrible gas mileage. Yes, it'd be nice if they made it better. But the biggest downside to me is the third row, because you can't stuff your kids. You have to, it's just out of the question. You can't do it. Now again, that's not going to affect many people, and they're going to in fact see that as a positive. Hey, they got rid of those stupid back seats, good to go. But that's just my opinion on third row. Either way, if you're on the fence about this and you do like a third row like me, I'm sure the future trims that Lexus is going to, you know, they're going to reveal it over the months, because this thing isn't going to be in dealers till March of next year, 2024. So in the meantime, they'll drop different trim levels, and I'm sure we'll see a third row trim, but they might get rid of those big 33-inch tires, and the wheel size might be different, and there might be some other difference. They might get rid of that rear locker, you know, so you might have to play with it a little bit. Nothing's perfect. You can't get it all. So, well, you kind of can with if they would just bring over the Prado as it is. It has in the world market, they get a small, fuel-efficient engine. You get your front locker, your center locker, your rear locker, 8-track, 3 rows, EKDSS, and no body kit. So hopefully Toyota will just bring over the Prado, and that would be the most exciting thing, I think, for everybody. I know I'd be excited about that. But until then, and until we get more information, this is what we got. That's our opinion. What do you think? Either way, it's going to be a hit. I'm not even going to touch on reliability. You're good to go. And the subjective stuff about power and looks, again, you're either going to love it or hate it. So if you found this video helpful, please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a great, great day.
My door, I left them in the boom. This was really after 4. The rest of what that for was really just bored. Yo, break out the sword and let's go cruising in your Ford. Watch out, yeah, sweet snow is the deal. As she shouted, it's the funky lesson 1 to the